Mississaugas as a credit. I'd now like to turn it over to Her Worship Mayor Chow.
Thank you. Well, good morning. Happy New Year, Toronto. I'm here to share some great news for transit riders in Toronto when it comes to the TTC proposed 2025 budget. This is a budget that put TTC riders and Torontonians first, with service increases and no fare increase. We're freezing the fares and putting in major investment in state of good repair and improving customers' experience. I know how important reliable service is for Torontonians. My mom did not drive, didn't have a car, and she relied on TTC for several decades to get to work as a maid. If she was a couple of times late for work, she would have been fired. And being the single bread earner in the family, we would be in trouble. Now, for TTC, 2024 was a year of challenge and growth. We had service interruptions, slow zones, leaks, infrastructure challenges, making it difficult for thousands of riders. And TTC has made it through a lot over the last few years, staying afloat during the pandemic when they lost riders and lost revenue as a result. But now, a new year means that there will be new opportunities to get Toronto moving, to make TTC work for people, to make TTC the better way again. Earlier this year, I challenged the TTC board to imagine a city where people choose to take transit first because it's the fastest, safest, most convenient choice to get to work or school or run errands everywhere in Toronto. So, as I said, for the second year in a row, we are freezing TTC fares because we have an affordability crisis. Today's budget is a historic investment in state of good repair, the likes of which we have not seen in over a decade. Today's budget includes service improvement across the network all over the city, and I want to point several one particular. You know how infuriating it is when the buses are bunched together? And you wait and wait and wait and nothing comes, and then boom, 3 of them showed up at the same time. Oh my God, okay, we need to fix that. That's why we have a pilot project to tackle bus bunching on TTC 10 worst routes for bunching. Starting, I'll give you an example, on Dufferin Street, the bus there, right behind me somewhere here, Dufferin is right there. Oh, okay, thank you. We are improving it, and if the pilot works, we will expand it all across the city. Now, the good thing is the TTC bus service is improving, and but increasing the riders. Riders are coming back, which means that it can get crowded on weekends and off-peak period, which is why we are increasing streetcars, subways, and bus services across the city so that TTC are there when the riders need it and when they need it. We're hiring and training operators because, you know, you can have the bus. If no one's operating, it won't work. Same with streetcars or subways. So in the fall, we will deliver 6-minute or better service, 7 days a week, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on 3 streetcar routes, Dundas, Sinclair, and Bathurst. Imagine that. Faster. You don't have to wait as long. Also, on the subway, Line 1 and Line 2 off-peak period will operate every 5 minutes or better, and 6 minutes or better will be restored in Line 4. We are going to be back to the pre-pandemic level. And immediately, you know, coming, because we are hiring operators, you will see the most crowded routes, 9 of them across the city, increasing services by April. And that's the 2023 standard before the pandemic. We changed the standard back then in 2023, which means that if you have a baby stroller, if you have a lot of groceries, you can't get on the bus, or you get so crowded you can't move. Well, we are changing that. We will, for example, the 96 Wilson bus, 96 back there somewhere, 96 Wilson bus will move to 6-minute services on Saturdays, because Wilson has seen significant ridership growth in the past couple of years, especially on weekends. Routes across the city will improve services from 57 Midland to 116 Morningside to 944 Kipling South Express. Riders can expect more frequent and less crowded buses. We're also working hard to improve riders' experience in this budget. Torontonians will see better looking, cleaner, brighter station with public address speakers that you can actually hear very clearly through a Back on Track fund. And in 6 key locations, including the Scarborough Town Center, you know how busy that one, and Finch, we will be piloting a new station management model that will improve safety, security, and cleanliness. We know from what Ryder tells us that makes TTC more welcoming for people, will encourage more people to use the service. Now, I know you're cold out here. Imagine being out on the street. So some people hop on a streetcar. Well, but they're not there for public transit. They're trying to get out of the cold and use it as shelter. So we will have 10 street outreach workers added to the downtown streetcar routes to help connect vulnerable people to actual shelter services. And thanks to the new deal in the federal government, new subway cars on Line 2 is on order, and that means more reliability. With the upload of Garner and DVP, we will be investing hundreds of millions more into repairing transit. In fact, we will cut the repair to-do list, the backlog, by almost half, almost 50%. Remember how long that backlog is? We are cutting it by half, by billions, by a historic $4 billion new investment, thanks to the New Deal. So in summary, in 2025 proposed TTC budget, we will freeze fares, increase service with a cleaner, brighter, and safer TTC. There will be less bunching and crowding of buses, more frequent subways, and streetcars. Let me be clear about what we're doing here. We're making the TTC the better way. One step, one station, one bus stop at a time. Let me call on Chair of TTC, Councillor Jamaal Myers, to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So thank you for joining us today as we announce the TTC's proposed 2025 operating and capital budgets. As TTC Chair and a daily TTC rider myself, I'm proud to help present this year's TTC budget alongside Mayor Chow and Interim CEO Greg Percy, which focuses on 2 things: safety and customer experience. To put it simply, we are working hard to build a transit system where parents don't worry about their kids using the subway at night and buses arrive when they're supposed to arrive. Budget 2025 focuses on improving on-time performance on all TTC vehicles, reducing overcrowding, and enhancing comfort and convenience for riders. These investments and improvements would not be possible without the leadership and sustained support of Mayor Chow, the support of our TTC board, staff and unions, our riders, and of course our government partners. When we look back on Budget 2025, it will definitely be a pivotal moment for a transformative change in the TTC. To be clear, this is a massive step in the right direction that reflects our commitment to making the TTC a transit system that every Torontonian can be proud of, a system that is safe, reliable, and ready to meet the challenges of the future. As part of Budget 2025, to sort of go into further detail for Mayor Chow, we're investing in more frequent and reliable service across all modes. Key enhancements include increasing midday, evening, and weekend services. These investments aim to improve travel times, reduce overcrowding, and enhance comfort and convenience for our riders. Maintenance, as we all know, is critical to the reliability and safety of our system. The 2025 to 2034 capital budget and plan allocates $16.4 billion to address urgent maintenance needs, reducing our state of good repair backlog by nearly 50%, and it invests in sustainable infrastructure. Highlights include upgrading critical infrastructure, including signals, escalators, and elevators, enhancing Wheel-Trans services to accommodate an increase in registrants to ensure all Torontonians have access to this vital service. As we all know, investments in the TTC are investments in Toronto's future. Every dollar spent in the public transit delivers over $7 in economic, environment, and social benefits. By reducing congestion, lowering greenhouse gas emissions, and supporting a growing city, these budgets set the stage for a stronger, more sustainable Toronto. As Mayor Chow said, we're actually going to fix our stations. Everybody talks about it, but now we're actually going to do it. We have $15 million set aside in our station rehabilitation program, and we're focusing on 6 stations in particular: Kennedy, Scarborough Town Centre, Lansdowne, Dundas, Finch, and Spadina. All of these stations will have a station supervisor. You'll walk in, you'll see the picture of who's actually in charge of the station. There will be a QR code so that you can report things that are wrong with the station. And we're actually going to be focusing on these stations, but we're focusing on all the stations, but these stations in particular. So that's really exciting. And this is also the first time in a budget we've actually set a target to reduce fare evasion by $12 million. We hear it from riders all the time. It's not fair that some people are paying and I'm paying. We've heard you, and this is why we can do things like have a zero fare freeze, because we're actually doing something about this problem that costs us over $140 million a year. So this is a really, really strong budget. It moves us in the right direction. It tackles the problems that people say every day that they experience when they ride the TTC, and it's honest about the problems that we face. We couldn't do it without the support of our riders and employees, and I just think this is really a positive step in the right direction, and I'm excited to see these changes. Thank you very much, and I will now turn it over to Greg Persson.
I'm not going to echo what the wise words you've heard already. The key focus points are customer experience and safety. Getting a step increase in both is really important to sustaining our ridership growth, and that will support us going forward for a long time. So we look forward to making this happen, making this come alive. The TTC team is focused, and we'll make sure this happens. Thanks.
May I just ask one of the folks that from TTC that deals with the routes and the customer service, I think Lawrence Liu? Yeah, I know you do a lot of that because I follow you on social media. I want to say, no, and other things. I want to come and say a few words about customer services, bus routes, streetcars, bunching, you name it, go for it.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor Chow. We're really excited with the hours that we're getting to increase service in the coming year. We know that we have a lot of growing ridership, especially on our bus network and in off-peak periods. So we're definitely working on evenings, weekends, and midday periods. On weekends in particular, where ridership is actually higher than it was prior to the pandemic, we're really excited to get some dedicated hours to really address that, as Mayor Chow mentioned on the Wilson corridor, for example, but then also bringing our streetcar and subway service back into more pre-pandemic levels of wait times means that people can get around when they're traveling for recreation, for shopping, and anything else that they're doing. Because we know that people, when they're crushed on a bus on a weekend, it's extra uncomfortable, especially when they have shopping carts, wheelchairs, and mobility devices. So this will give more room on board and less wait times and faster travel times. So really looking forward to this.
Thank you. Thank you. The operating budget increase of 6%, okay? Because this is the boat investment. Why? Because we want TTC riders to come back. Most of you are back already. Keep coming, because we are making your customer services so much better for you, and the service is improving. So this is a huge investment. In fact, I believe the investment is $85 million in the operating dollars in terms of the actual amount that is increased. Yes, I'm right. $85 million increase, 6.5% increase on the base operating budget. And of course, the capital is $16.4 billion. It's a lot of money. Why? Because we believe in public transit. Questions, folks?
Where is that money going to come from?
Where is that money coming from? This is the net dollar. The gross dollar is actually $2.8 million. So think about this. 2.8, close to $3 billion budget, okay? The net is 1.4. Where did $1.4 billion? The $1.4 billion net come from the property tax base. The rest of the gross dollars come from a combination of provincial investment through the New Deal and also for transit riders, because the more people take public transit, guess what? The more revenue we're going to get, which means that we can improve on the services even better.
So if the bulk of this is going to come from property taxes, that leads to the follow-up question is, where are we landing on property taxes this year? Last year, we know we had the record high hike. I talked to you over winter break. You said you're going to listen to people. The budget launch is coming up in a few days. Where are we with property taxes? Are we going to see a number similar to last year?
You will see the numbers next week, but in terms of the $85 million increase, which brings it to $1.4 billion, it is a worthwhile investment, because we know that if we invest in public transit, we ease congestion. We have a congestion problem. We have to do better for public transit, and this is one way to do it.
Mayor Chow, changing gears a little bit, we're getting reports that there was an encampment fire in the park just north of Queen's Park this morning. I wanted to get your thoughts on the encampments in the city, what to do, and on this most recent fire.
This is fire number 7 or 8 in the last few weeks in encampments because of the propane tank. We are actively bringing people indoor. It's freezing outside. People should not be outside, which is why at last council, just before the New Year's, before the holidays, we have added our own city dollars, 900 spots for rent supplements. And why are we doing that? Because we are stepping forward, because we need to bring people indoor, and all our shelters are full. And when shelters are full, you can't bring people out from the encampments. You just chase them from one place to another place. They might be under the ravine, under the Garner, sometimes even on streetcars. So we need to bring them inside. And I've been in active conversation with the fire chief to monitor, to take the propane tanks off, because we have in shelters quite a lot of shelter outreach workers to look at where these tanks are, and we are actively trying to bring people indoor through warming centers, through rent supplements, through encampments, but we are seeking support from both the provincial and the federal government because we can't do it alone.
My question is for TTC staff. I'm hoping someone can explain how service hours are calculated. What does that mean? Like, I don't think the average person would know the math behind how that's determined.
So in terms of service hours, that's basically the operator hour of service. So then basically every hour that that vehicle is out, we have to pay an operator. We also have to pay for the kilometers on the vehicle. So we're getting an increase in the number of hours, which means more operators on the road, more vehicles on the road. And that is representing almost a 6% increase compared to this year.
Would that include buses at stations waiting to be deployed?
It does, because obviously that's part of the service as the operator is waiting to leave for the next trip. Obviously, with congestion, we do have more time at stations where buses are holding for schedule, but that is part of what we're doing in terms of the bus bunching pilot, is to keep those buses moving and make sure that the service is on the road.
Could you clarify then how much of the total service hours increase are buses actively picking up commuters versus those who are not and just kind of waiting to be deployed?
So that is what we're seeing is an increase of about 5.8% of service, and we're also actually seeing an equivalent increase in the kilometers. So after the past several years where we've adjusted a lot of schedules to deal with congestion, we are actually being able to just provide more service on the road with every hour we provide.
Mayor Chow, with so much up in the air in Ottawa right now, with Justin Trudeau resigning, of course, how confident are you to still be able to secure federal funding for important city services, from housing to transit?
I want to take this opportunity to thank the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, for his public service for over a decade. And he is still the Prime Minister, and so are his cabinet that are actively working. In fact, I connected with the Housing Infrastructure Minister as early as just this morning, and we've been in active conversation before the holidays, and we continue this conversation. We have active partnership on investing in food in schools, in building affordable housing, continued investment in public transit, and the waterfront. So all of those things, the work will continue in the next few months until a new leader is elected, and if there's a federal election, we'll see who will get elected. But my record has been that I'm very laser focused on what needs to be done: build housing, feed kids, invest in public transit, get Toronto moving, and we will continue, and I will continue to work in partnership with any levels of government.
Mayor Chow, I just wanted to, one thing you said earlier is we need to bring people indoors where the shelters are full. And one thing that happens during cold snaps like this is there's the emergency network that has a lot of private enterprise, even the Eaton Centre, that essentially allows people inside. When we talk to people that live on the street, they say that's not exactly how it works. And I bring this up when we talked about the money for looking at fare evasion. And when we talk about how cold it is right now, and there's an inability for people to be able to seek shelter if they need it, is this, first of all, how much of a priority is this really for TTC riders? And for the most vulnerable, kicking them out of stations or potentially fining them? Do you think that's fair?
Well, that's why we have 10 extra outreach workers, because riding on a streetcar is not really a place where you would shelter yourself. The City of Toronto have warming centers that have opened, and we want to bring people indoors. So if they need a place to sleep, for example, streetcar is not a good place to do so, whereas a shelter is, which is why we have increased 900 more rent supplements to bring people indoor. We can't do it alone. The encampment funds and the street to homes funds, all of that we are signing deals with both the federal and the provincial government, and hopefully we can see real action to bring in people indoor. You would have noticed that there are now fewer people in encampments, in camps, because we are now actively giving rent supplement out. If you may allow me to go a bit further in the weed on this one, with COP, which is the Canada Ontario Housing Benefits, in 2024 it was really unfortunate. It worked for 3 months. The money came after the federal government finally said yes. As you remember, last 2 Christmas ago, they said yes, and then it stopped end of March. And between April to October, nothing happened. So rather than 300 people coming indoor every month, nothing was going on. And as a result, we see in the summer a huge number of people in camps because we don't have the rent supplement program activated. So what I'm seeking is an ongoing rent supplement program so that we could bring people indoor, so we will have much less camps of people sleeping out in the street, especially in the middle of a very cold winter.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a follow-up, and Councillor Myers or Mr. Percy, feel free to add on this one. I was thinking about the service, they're not guarantees, but say 6 minutes or less for streetcars like Bathurst, which is one of my least favorite routes, simply because you don't move. So I wanted to talk about that. And also the 5 minutes or less for off-peak hours for lines 1 and 2. We still have the signal switching and slow zones. How can stuff like that be guaranteed? Feel free, anyone, to jump in as they'd like.
Well, I'll start, okay? And no, I get it, because guess what? I live at Dundas and Spadina, and my kid live at Bathurst and Dundas, my grandkids, right? So I'm on that Dundas streetcar, I'm on the Spadina bus, I'm on the Bathurst streetcar, and I thought, okay. But by the fall, we need to train operators. You can't just say, oh, here's the money, okay? You have to train operators, you have to train the trainers to train, and to get the operators, hire the operators and get them going. So by fall, it will be 6 minutes of better services, 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I can't wait to see that change, because on Dundas, Sinclair, Bathurst, it is packed with people, which is great, but we need to do more. And I'll leave it to the expert as to precisely how it can be done. Anyone?
So I'll speak first to slow zones. Right now, today's count is 11. We've set a baseline of 12 across the system, which is taking a leadership role, frankly, in North America in this space. But it can go up and down, so we have to actively manage that. This is something we've created a metric to measure that, and teams to jump on it right away. So the true thing, this is all about safety. You know, the more we do this, the safer we are, and that's right up there with customer experience. So, so we think we've got that in focus. We're going to do some interesting things to increase the actual track time to get out there and make these repairs. Right now it's limited to 90 minutes. We need to make it longer to do more repairs faster. So we will put that into play. So as far as the other, we have to be creative. You can't do the same stuff you've always done and assume it's faster and better. So you have to be smarter. And so that's the plan, and that's what we've talked about and ready to put it into effect. So that goes for bus, streetcars, and subway. So we've got a lot of good ideas. We've got a strong team. We've got a very committed team, and we're going to put that into play. So watch us. Thanks.
Last one. This one probably for Councillor Myers or Mr. Percy, but Mayor Chow, if you want to jump in, that's great. So the TTC doesn't have a budget committee. Last year there was a motion to strike one by potentially mid this year. I don't think that report ever came back. So why don't we have a budget committee? Are we going to get one?
Before he answered the question, allow me to just jump in on the slow zone. I know it's a problem. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you're designing a machine that would do the sonic test to see whether you'll be able to, you know, where the problems are on the tracks, which would help, and that's coming in a year or two. And with the state of good repair dollars that we're putting in, which is like $4 billion. It's a lot of funds that hopefully that would do a lot in reducing the problems people are experiencing, but it can't be done overnight. In terms of the budget committee, it's a big budget.
So yes, it's a fair point in terms of why we don't have a budget committee. I think what we're going to be looking at is, rather than just having simply a budget committee, how do we do more strategic planning year long, which includes looking at the budget. So I think that's the direction we want to go to, rather than just sort of striking a committee just for the budget, and then the committee sort of subsides once the budget's passed. We want to look at, how do we get into more strategic long-term planning? And I think that's where the direction we want to head in.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Oh, I was just gonna say, is that like gonna be some kind of formalized process? Like, what are we exactly are we looking at here?
Still to be determined. We're still working out the details, but that's the direction we want to head into in terms of like getting a more strategic, thoughtful approach to how we do year-end planning on the TTC board.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Go inside and stay warm.